Good morning, everyone. How are you today? This is my lovely assistant again. She needs a name, and she's going to help me present your neck. So let's go down and look into the neck, and she's going to look at that and point for you where the neck area and the outer part of her clavicle area. We're going to be shading today. This is going to be a quick video, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay? Okay. All right. So first of all, let me put her away because I'm afraid she's going to get all dirty. And she doesn't like that at all. No. All right. So let's go ahead and begin. First, I always teach you that when you have your hands on your paper, make sure you have another piece of paper or a paper towel underneath you so that you end up not wearing it. All that graphite, that lovely graphite. Let's go ahead and begin right into the right side of the neck. We're going to be dealing with the hair and the ear on the other side in the last video. So this is the second last video. We should be finished after that. In the video that I just created for you, it was the lips. And there was a couple little things I wanted to share with you first. I was telling you that we always refine and we always assess and adapt the situation. Well, there's a little bit of a reflective highlight in the upper area of the lip I hadn't noticed before here, and slightly over here on this side as well. You are welcome to go in, as we talked about, draw cracks with your pencil, but you're also able to go in and draw cracks with whatever you need to with your pink pearl. Don't forget that. That's a very important lesson. And I can see already with assessing and adapting that my shape here that we talked about earlier needs to be a little bit more of a swoop. So I'll work on that later. Again, there's too much of a reflection through here. I think it's because the black ebony is a very shiny pencil, and you're not seeing what I see. This area looks entirely too light when I'm looking at it on the monitor, but yet when I'm looking at it in person, I feel it's just right. But again, I'm always adapting. There's a little bit of a dark area up here, and you can always just add little areas, blend them in with your blending stump, either with a handheld, this is a number 6, or the ones that we created together, which I think are best to smooth those down. And then again, if you think some areas are too dark, just go in and either pat it out with your pink eraser or pop it just to tone that down a little bit with your gray eraser, which makes it kind of nice. So I think I'll do that with this area over here, just to kind of lessen that. All right, so let's go ahead down here into the neck. You're going to take your pencil, and when I follow along this line right here, there is a highlight. And that highlight is always going to be on this edge. And let's look at this, because it's like a reflective highlight. So as I come down from here, you can see that that's where the natural shade, it kind of arcs a little bit more. This is a shadow, and then there's a highlight on the inside. This area is going to be much darker than what she has on the outside. But let's go ahead on the inside here and work with this. So with your dull black ebony, yes, I'm going to add this directly onto the face. Why is that? Because there is a dark line here separating this area. This is a little bit of a darker shade than what I have. I've been waiting to do that with you. So first, let's go ahead and do our shape. Directly underneath the nose, through the middle of the lips, down through the bottom. It's a little bit askew over here to the right. That's where that area was. It looks like it's an indentation. So right here, she has a slight indentation, and you don't have to do that. If you just want to make this rounded, you can, but I'm going to add mine into there. My hand is hanging off the table because my table has ended, but I'm going to try to do this nice and swoopy for you, creating that all the way up to here. So that's her jawline. All right, now we want to make sure that it's drawn correctly before you draw that. Connecting here to this dark area, you can see this glow of a highlight on her face. So you need to question yourself, is that highlight on the face or is it on the neck? Well, here it's definitely on the face. But then when I come down to here, because that is lighter than what I have on the neck, it changes over about right here, where now the face doesn't have that anymore. Do you see that? But yet the face is still lighter than the neck. So it's safe to say that from here down, and you want to start at the root, from here down, very careful because we don't want to draw on the face. We're going to do a slight crosshatch, but when I do this crosshatch, I'm going to do them in ovals. So what does that mean? You can see that I'm doing ovals here, right? But I'm making them nice and close together so there's no air. She has, when you look at my hand over here on the left, it's very tight up against where the face begins, and it comes down and it glows back up. Okay, it almost looks like a beard. So if I were to draw this with a pencil, this is kind of like the shape. It goes off of here, and this is kind of like the shape of what she has. It goes in through here. So this is going to be dramatically darker. Yes, it's okay if you were to go in and do that as a 10. This is not a 10. I can always lighten that up. This is more like what's going to be an 8.5, and it's going to fade out to probably a 6. So I'm doing my ovals. And you don't have to do them the entire distance. You want to be really careful. Entire distance, I was meaning from here to here. And I do have tape on my paper. Never noticed that before, which is a real bummer. Now I'm scratching my paper. I think that's when it was hanging up on the board when you all were here. So I'm really careful to do this right up against, remember, put this down underneath you, right up against that line. I don't want to go into the face. Now, how are we going to blend this? Well, you're going to get your trusty blending stump, which is what we rolled together. This does not have to be a very sharp area. I'm going to do this a little darker through here. Now, I said it was a crosshatch, so now I'm going to go back the other direction. Right? We have to in order to do that. So I'm going to do a crosshatch through here. I've got that little divot still there. And as we're going up through here, and I'm going to continue this, I have my hand underneath me. No, she's not going to be the bearded lady. Not that there's anything wrong with that. So I might start this way because I am right-handed, but I am going to come back the other direction. I want to be careful not to, again, draw on the face. And we know that when we shade it down, the first layer gets to be twice as dark when we blend it. But I'm going to kind of let that fade out up there. This is going to be a heavier line. Again, these are my ovals. This is going to be a number 10. Okay, now, I don't want to stop there because what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue over through here by doing my ovals lightly. Okay, I know I'm going to go onto the table, and that's all right. Have a piece of paper underneath you if you're going to be on your table, because I don't want you to draw on your parents' table. They could get very unhappy with that, as I would not blame them. Now, this is going to be a slight fade out. Okay, it's not a crisp line. When you look at this, it fades out. So that means that what I'm working on, which is ovals, I'm going to go all the way down. We're going to fade that out together. And I'm going to continue all the way up through this side of her neck. And we're going to ask ourselves about her neck area, because we're getting to that pinnacle point where which is darker than what. This is a very sharp line. It's a very sharp area, and it is a 10. And we had talked about that before when we did it. But I said when we go to visit the neck again, we would refine that. So yes, this is definitely darker. Okay, now I want to fade that out a little bit because the neck is lighter. And it even has that glow. It has that highlight reflection on her neck area. So this area right here is a highlight reflection. And this tape's going to drive me crazy. So I'm going to be getting rid of this right now. Hey, that's a very big piece of tape. Okay, now I can do my work. So crosshatch, lightly. These are ovals on the opposite direction. And if you want to go over to here, you can. It's not a problem. Okay, so as I'm doing this, you can see that my hand pressure is lighter. And yes, I am going back the other way. This is a crisscross motion. I have yet to do my crosshatch through the one that I did before. Okay, now let's come over to here for a little bit. Here's your highlight on this side of the neck. Okay, it's over here. And I want to make sure I've shaped that correctly before I blend that down. I want to make sure that it's nice and straight, and then it does flare out right there. Okay, wipe it away with your paper towel. Let's go up into here, and we're still continuing this dark shade down to where her neck ends, right here. Okay, because down here it almost looks like it's swooping like this, where this is the shadow and this gets to be a lighter area. And then the hair is going to be last. So we're going to wait to do this section over here when we do the hair in our last video. So let's go ahead and connect these. And again, this is a straight line down and it has a slight curve in. Okay, so I'm very lightly, barely going to do anything here because my overspray is going to shade that for me. Overspray from what I blend here, we're going to have a nice overspray. So this, in theory, is a much shorter video, but it's a pretty big area. It takes a little bit of time, but it's a very simple video. And this is a darker area, so I'm just going to do a little bit of a crosshatch coming back. Again, not much air between my lines. This does need to be darker. It's going to go all the way down. I'm going to kind of let that blend out a little bit. I think that my line was a little too harsh, so I'm going to relax it by just adding a few more ovals on here. Okay, so we're just going to relax that so we don't have that heavy line. All right, now the fun begins. So now you're going to get your old handy dandy used blending stump. We're going to begin in a lighter area first. Okay, so up here where there's a lighter area, very carefully, I would like for you to blend this. Why did I do the lighter area first? Well, if I began right here where there's going to be like a number 10, if I began here first and then I went this direction, there's a potential that this could have been too dark. Okay, and I don't want this to be too dark. So you always want to start with blending your lighter areas first. Now, we have to be very careful with this jawline. We don't want to do an overspray into the face, and these are circles. Now I'm only going to do this towards the jawline area, and then I'm going to get out the bigger paper towel with my finger to smooth the rest out. Okay, so these are still ovals. In the direction that I'm going, they are still ovals. And yes, they will need to be a little darker. Could I have switched up into a skinnier one? Yes, I could have, to make it a little bit more detailed, a little bit more refined, sure. But that's only at the tip because you don't want to scratch down inside of your neck area. So again, if you wanted to continue this, you could. So very carefully, it's like drawing. Very careful. I want to be careful not going back. I should just be going one direction and checking it. Just be careful that you don't go into your face. Okay, I'm going to switch over blending stumps where it's a little bit smoother to bring that down because my finger is a little bit too big. I can't get into there right now. Now, do you see what I was talking about? When I was down here blending this, as I started to go up to here, do you see how dark that is, even though that was a lighter shaded area? So I'm going to turn it over to where I haven't used it as much. And I'm going to blend that, and now it's not as dark. Look at that. It's not as dark. Because I do want that glow. Okay, while I'm over here, I'm going to flip it back. This area that I created that's going to be darker, I do want this to fade out a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up here, make that darker. And you can see that. Oh, no, you can't because I moved my paper. But there it is. This is going to be darker up here, and I need to let that fade out. So I'm going to move this over here if I'm able to, so you can see what I'm working on. This area got a little dark. So I'm going to pop that here. But before I do, I still feel as if I need to darken this just a smidge. And I know we just hit on this barely the other day. I'm not really going to go up towards the ear so much. But I do want to make sure that this is a 10 through here. And yes, it is going to fade out. Before I erase, before I pop, maybe I'll just take this in and blend that out. And again, I need my little paper towel underneath me. And we'll let that fade out. Okay, so we're going to blend that out a little bit. All right, just to dirty that up. Okay, so now we should see a noticeable difference between here, which is a number 10. Her neck area is going to be a little bit lighter. So as I finish that, let's go ahead back into here. So hopefully you can see that. I need to put something down that's heavy because that's wanting to bend upwards. All right, so let's continue. I am very carefully going to create this glow. Now, I can definitely see a glow here, right? But up on top, I need to lessen that. So I'm just going to pop that with my kneaded eraser. Remember how we do that? We can clean it by pulling it apart, putting it back together, keeping a little bit of a tip available just to pop it. Don't go crazy on it, but just a little bit on the neck area, just to kind of lighten that up a little bit. There we go. It makes it nice and light. So if I would like to take this in and shape that up a little bit, I could do that. Okay, now I feel as if I can get my finger in the rest of it. So I'm going to hold my paper down. Again, we're starting at the lighter area. We're going to do circles as best as we can. And now we start to get this really smooth area. Just going to keep blending that out until I get the effect of what I'd like. You don't want to overblend because you can exhaust your paper. We talked about that with the fibers at the beginning of the school because these are pressed fibers. Now, here is that dark area. Okay, I'm going to be just blending from here up. I don't want to go down here into this area yet because I will be switching my paper towel so it's a nice clean paper towel when I do that. All right, so let's switch our paper towel. Look how dirty that is. So let's switch out our paper towel just a little bit. Okay, fold it over. Now I'm going to begin with what I've done. And I can always add shadows in later. So I'm blending the area of what I've already created. And now we can see that soft glow. Circle, circle, circles. Slowly, we're going to be blending this out. Going all the way out. Now, let's question and answer ourselves for just a second. Let me have this here for a minute. Which is darker? Is it on her shoulder or is it the background? Well, if you answered that that shadow now changes over to her shoulder, you're correct. And where is that transition? About right here. Because you see the glow and it kind of fades out a little bit, but it starts to get darker here and off the paper. So how do we do that? Well, you're going to get your paper towel that has that shade on it, and very carefully, we're going to come down here onto her shoulder. I'm just drawing a little bit of a straight line without it looking like a straight line. You know how we disguise things? But I want it to be nice and crisp. And now, carefully, I'm going to fade it up towards this area so it still looks as if here the neck is lighter than here. But I'm going to tone that down just a smidge. Okay, so now that that's a darker area, I'm going to go ahead and finish this with my paper towel. I'm going to take a little bit of that darker paper towel, just a little bit of it, and I'm going to go back over what I've done, and I'm going to continue on to the rest of her body. Over here, we're on the left. I'm going to reload my paper towel carefully. And she's got this crease area coming up from the line down through here. I overshot it, but that's okay. I'm going to work on that. Circles, 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 circles. So what shade on a scale of 1 to 10 do you feel as if she has down here? Well, again, relate that in terms of what you have in her forehead or what you might have on her face. But this looks like it might be a 5. So I want to make sure, and I'm very careful reloading, because the shadow is coming from the top down. It's not the reverse. So I want to make sure I don't make that too dark. But again, I think everything could stand to be a little darker. I'm starting to add that line in there, and I'm going to do that individually with my blending stump here in a second. Okay, so the blending stump, which is here, and I'm going to pull it back. I reloaded a little bit, and I'm going to pull this back a little bit more and add a little bit more graphite down through here. And I'm going to start at the top, and we're going to find that slight line. And blend that out so that looks smooth. So it looks as if she has variations in her skin tone. And as I'm doing that, you can see that I'm going to go along the line of the top of her neck where it connects her shoulder. This would be like her clavicle area. Okay, that might be a little too bright, so I'm going to tone that down. I want to make these areas sharp. On the outside, it's a little sharper. The inside's lighter, but then it changes over here. We talked about that, where this is a little sharper. Okay. Now, I can pop this because that's the top of her, like a rotator cuff, where the rounded part of her shoulder is. So I'm just going to pop this a little bit down here to make that a little lighter. And in looking on the screen, it still looks as if I need to add a little bit of a shade up here. So this area is darker. And if I need to add a darker shade, and I know I have a shine on mine, but trust me, I did that pretty dark, but I'm going to go in and do it again. And hopefully you can see there's a little bit of a difference here. And you have to be really careful when you do this. Because again, you don't want it to look like a very hard line. We want it to look as if it's soft. And we don't want to scratch our paper with our pencil. So I keep rotating my pencil every now and again. You know, I was teaching you how to rotate it as you draw. You can rotate that a little bit, or if you feel as if you're fine just using that flat edge softly without scratching your paper, sure, you can do that. Doing ovals, I want to try to disguise a little bit of a white edge here that I have. And that is basically it for how you do her neck. As long as you remember that this is a very, very dark shade down through here. Okay, that's like a number 10. And I still need to darken this a little bit more. I might come in with this and do bigger ovals, bigger swath. I think it would be best, though, as beginners, if we go in and use our paper towel, because if you do that, you can have hand pressure that you can make it harder or lighter to soften that if you need to. I just think that looks a little better when you use that. And we're just going to darken this a little more. And again, I still think I'm going to pop this. If I'm not getting the pop and I want a little bit more definition, I can do a little bit of a rub. Okay, now I did that on purpose and I left that area a little round and a little big, because now I want you to take your paper towel, fold it on the inside where it's clean. Okay, remember how I taught you how to do this? With the perimeter, we are going to blend it into what we've already done, and this is going to make a nice soft edge. See that? Nice and soft. And then take another part of your clean paper towel and do the inside. Try not to go towards the outside of the perimeter, because then you're going to knock out what you've just done. So there we've created a lighter area where it's a softer glow. So I want you to continue on yours until you get the effect of what you would like. And bless your hearts, I miss you again so very, very much. I want you to stay safe and warm, and please know that you are loved by me. Okay? All right. So this concludes today's video, and I'll be saying the next one in a couple of days. All right, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.